Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into our probably spicy edition of Late Night with the Borg after the Indiana State debacle that happened today. As always, we would like to thank our title sponsor, Kubota Dealers of South Dakota, with 9 locations across the great state of South Dakota. There's always a Kubota dealer near you to get into some orange equipment today. As always, we are on our Jackrabbit Illustrated Facebook and YouTube and the FCS Fans Nation YouTube. So thanks to them for carrying us as well. Before anybody flips out, that is a Kansas City Chiefs helmet on Borg's head, and it's for protection after everything that's going to be slinging at us here. Yeah, Gilby gets it.
I couldn't find the radiological the hazmat suit on such short notice, so we're going with the Chiefs helmet because I'm gonna need the protection tonight because we got a meltdown. We're gonna have a lot of stuff getting thrown our way, and I need a little extra protection tonight.
I mean, understandably so.
For understandable reasons, you're right about that.
I mean, honestly, I'm usually pretty glass half full guy at worst, but man, like Seth Meyer says, I'm fine, everything's fine. Why do you keep asking me if everything is fine? This whole game, just I tweeted about it at one point. It was just a comedy of errors. You outgain them 440 some yards to 226, and you lose by 2 touchdowns. Like, that's madness. But realistically,
feel that close at times.
Yeah, but there was a ton of empty calorie yards. This team is still stuck in the same point that we were talking about at the beginning of the season, where it's like, this offense can be really good. They move the ball really well, but then they shoot themselves in the foot. Whether it's a fumble or an interception, now you've got a freshman quarterback slinging the ball around who now he's dinged up pretty good. You got him slinging the ball around and throws a pick. That's going to happen. You've got a fumble. Your center steps on your guard steps on your quarterback when he goes back to do the handoff, so he falls down trying to make the handoff. So all of a sudden now you're in a terrible position. You bring in the running quarterback package, but then you run it too many times with him out there, and then you send out your freshman quarterback in 3rd and 8 when you're getting, I don't think it was quite in the red zone, but you're around the 30. So then it puts you in a bad position, and then you go for it on 4th down. You can point at all the 4th down stops that you were 0 for on like 5 attempts on 4th down, which realistically is the same as a turnover. You're giving them the ball right where you were, or maybe a couple yards forwards, but that's it. So you're basically turning the ball over there. It was just thing after thing, and then a breakdown. It just took 2 big plays, bang bang, they kill you on big touchdowns there. Coach Jackson, the post game reference, just the lack of big explosive plays, not the 5, 10, 15 yard plays, but the 30, 40, 50 yard plays that are still not materializing. And we'll get into the nuts and bolts of this a little bit, but overall, it felt like, from a coaching staff perspective, offensively, they coached this game very it was weird, conservatively but aggressively. For a while there, there wasn't a lot of, it didn't feel like there was a ton of variety for when you had marble passing. It felt fairly predictable, but then it felt like the coaches believed that the points were going to be at a premium, and they didn't have a lot of faith in the offense to put up a lot of points. So they kept going for it on these 4th downs, and they didn't have the faith in the kickers, which understandable. But on the same token, he made his 2 longest field goals of his season so far in that game. And then you take the ball out of his hands a couple times. It was just frustrating all the way through, and it just felt like the tires just kept spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And I heard the comment of, well, when you outgain them that much and whatever, it's just coaching. That's not That's not true. That's not the coaches. I look at this game and you see some of the things you saw where the kickoff return for a touchdown right away by Indiana State off of a little fake reverse, and someone loses their lane and they take it for a touchdown, and then fumble after fumble after fumble. Not necessarily ones that were lost, but there was for sure 3 or 4 fumbles, possibly 5. If I'm not remember, I might be misremembering. I know on the screen at one point it said 3, but it was like they didn't count the one. I think it was Henry was running and like got the ball knocked out and it bounced back up into his stomach like a dribble, which was incredibly fortuitous. And when you see those things, not hanging on to the ball, like putting the ball on the turf all the time, which is not a characteristic of this team at all, it just feels like, there was a lack of focus issue the whole time. And I'm not sure why that was. You could really probably, the mantra after the NDSU game and the Marker game was don't let them beat you twice. You could argue that that's what happened. You let them beat you twice, like they weren't locked in, and or maybe not.
We thought this might be a trap game regardless of what happened with the Marker, because obviously you sandwich it between 2 rivalry games.
Yep.
It's an Indiana State with team, which is not good. Although we saw they gave NDSU a half. Granted, that was in Terre Haute, and it was a weird atmosphere. You still, there's no excusing it. They're just
they played with Montana for a couple of quarters as well, but even then, Montana just put the foot down and throttled them. On Alex's comment here. Says, I feel like they ran the ball okay today. Play calling was bizarre at times, running it down their throats between the tackles. Let's call a jet sweep on 3rd and 3 and exactly on the 4th down. I agree with that, but then, on the same token, when you look, you average 3.4 yards per carry against a defense that's been giving up 5. That's not good.
And I am, full disclosure, some of you probably saw on Twitter, I was down in Vermilion, working on a story for Midwest Sports Plus they had the Native American helmet, Native American Heritage Day, and they had that. Funny, I'm wearing a helmet right now. And I'm going to take this off in about 5 minutes because it's bugging the hell out of me.
I would.
It's not exactly fit to my big fat head, even though it is. I do fill it out rather nicely. It's got like a little top thing in there as well. But I was doing a feature on that helmet and the Native American Heritage Day, but I was obviously watching. The game, the SDSU game was still going after that game had ended. So I caught the 4th quarter, and while watching a little of the World Series, congrats to the Dodgers. I am not really a big Dodgers fan, as I'm sure you're not.
No,
because
I will never. I'll congratulate Blake Trinan, but that's it.
Yeah,
the Dodgers are a cheating organization with how they spend their money, and that's just a fact.
Well, we're probably gonna get a strike because of it. So
it'd be fun
not to have baseball in 2027. But my dad, who many of you, ironic that we're going into the State U game in Vermilion, because the last time my dad was here, he was the last game in Vermilion, and he's been a Dodger fan since they were in Brooklyn. So happy for him, but obviously I'm a Rockies fan, and so I'm not a big Dodger fan. Although as a Chiefs fan, I can't really get too upset when a dynastic team wins a title. So I guess I can only complain so much here. But point being, I've been watching back the SDSU game, and that's probably the worst game I think I've ever seen the 605 Hogs play.
It was bad.
That game to me was I don't know. Last week was one thing against NDSU, but it's NDSU. It just, I saw somebody making the comments about Loffridge not hitting a hole, not hitting holes quick enough. Where were the holes? It just, I'm watching plays.
I will say this. I do agree. I think the other 2 backs have been more effective recently because they just get downhill. If you watch Juice run, he
gave him a spark.
He really is he's too patient a lot of times, it feels like. But I do believe I remember hearing, I think it was might have been Jackson, said Loffridge was hurt or something.
Yeah, he left pretty early, and he was pretty much done. I mean, look,
Yeah.
right on the first drive, I think he came up pretty gimpy on something. But I mean, the line just did not. It was not a good O-line day. I think they'll probably admit that right away. There was, and we kind of worried about their depth, but this is 2 straight rough games for them. It's one thing when it's NDSU, and you can kind of say, well, that's the Bison. I mean, this was Indiana State. They were in the backfield a lot. Right off the bat, they were off in the backfield a lot. And, I think NDSU's yardage number looks fine, but I think I've got the stat line up here, and I think the Jacks ran the ball something like 50 times, if I'm not mistaken. And to your point, I don't think they actually were credited with an official fumble, but you're right. They did put the ball on the turf.
They did give up one fumble on the fake punt. That was an official fumble. But as far as the ball hitting the turf, I'm pretty sure it was 5 times.
Yeah, it was hitting the turf a lot. But, I mean, attempts-wise, SDSU had 50 rushing attempts. So, I mean, you're going to get – when you run the ball that much, unless you're just that anemic, you're going to get a decent amount of yards. But 226 on 50, that's only 3 yards a carry against a team like that. Like you said, they give up an average of 5.
Yeah.
And there were some guys who definitely came in with more burst. I know Johnson – certainly, I mean, they're going to have to probably at this point burn his red shirt if they haven't already. I think they were on the verge of doing that, but it's kind of hard not to imagine because it looks like Loffridge is, if he's not hurt, he probably is very close to being hurt. There were guys in the backfield right away. It seems like they couldn't really set up a screenplay to save their life. And I'm going to take off the helmet now. So give me 1 second there.
Well,
all right, there we go. It's a great helmet. Love this helmet. It was actually echoing on me as well, and now my hair is a little messed up too. So, but par for the course, everything was kind of messed up today. If you're Jackrabbits, so I just some other notes. I mean, I do think Luke Marble. There's no way around it. He struggled. It just there are times when obviously I know that a lot was made that he almost threw the pick 6 right away in the game.
Yeah,
it just seems like he's too much. He's too kind of automatic right now, which to me is saying that he doesn't there were just times he just stared down a route and he didn't really look. He was only looking off one guy. Like I remember there was a 4th down play. I think right before what ended up being the clinching touchdown where he just stared down the one thing all the way and you knew he was going to throw that way the whole time. I think he was staring down Bullock on the 4th and 7 when it was 17-12. And they're at midfield, and he stares him down the whole way, and the route is not necessarily going right. I think Bullock got bumped or something, and that's a young, to be fair, that's it's a redshirt freshman who's not played a lot, but at the same time, you're now getting a few more game reps. You can't just say, oh, this is how the route's drawn up. I got to throw it that way. You got to look for your second and your third. You're a college quarterback. You do have to start looking for your other reads here, especially in some of these situations. And there are moments where he does show that he's got pretty good arm, but even then, it just some bad overthrows. It was just, the only guy who really had a good game, ironically, was Eli Stater, the kicker, who had been, we thought at one point this year had lost his job, had a couple of really long field goals in tough conditions, but then they didn't even seem that confident in him. And I don't get the offensive game plan with this team. Some of what they did today is what I would have liked to seen them do last week against NDSU. Take the deep shot right away against the Bison last week when they're almost certainly expecting the run. And against a team that's, giving up 5 yards per rush, as you mentioned, with Indiana State, they come out passing right away and he nearly gets picked off. Now, I know he hits the 35-yard bomb, but it just, I don't know. Apparently Chase Mason is the MVP. I don't think Chase Mason changes much at this point. It's hard to say he's changed.
No, come on.
I'm not going to go that far.
You can statistically look at the advanced numbers from that Alex Kinkle puts together. This offense went from being the 3rd best in the Valley in all the advanced metrics and everything else to now they're plummeted down to 6th.
I mean, I guess I
You
don't want to.
can't.
I don't want to make it sound
There's
like
no
it's.
argument against.
I don't want to
that
make it
he
sound.
has
I don't
made
want.
a
I don't want to be a
massive
cop
difference.
out. I don't want to be a cop out and say, "Oh, if Chase Mason was back, everything would be fine." I don't want that to be the cop out.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's where I
I'm
want
with
to be
you. I'm
clear.
with you. Yeah.
But apparently, he is that big of an MVP because they just have they have completely the wheels have fallen off because they don't. You know, I mean, obviously these other quarterbacks are young. You know, I kind of feel for John Bell right now because he's been with this program for 4 years, 4 years now. I mean, if you're not comfortable with the young guys, put the guy who's been in there for 3 or 4 years and let it, do anything at this point. But and I mean, again, I just don't want to say, I don't want to get into that thing. Yeah, I mean, a young QB has to settle in, and that's the other thing too. Indiana State had a backup quarterback in this game, so
he's been playing since week 2. However,
yeah, now he's been playing since week 2. That's fair.
That's not
fair.
an apples to apples comparison. I think you can make both points at the same time. That yes, Chase Mason does make that much of a difference. If you think the defense was the problem today, Dustin, I've got a bridge to sell you.
They were
that was not the issue today.
So last week, when people get about last week, yes, their defense had issues last week, especially getting off the field on third down. We went over that. But when they're on the field the whole game, because the offense is going 3 and out,
well,
you're not going to have any chances. So, but today their defense, for the most part, looked fine.
SDSU had the ball for 41 minutes today.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the defense being on the field for a long period of time.
And your first points were given up on a special teams return, where, as you said, now this is one thing I'm kind of finding bizarre with this team. I don't know if this is discipline. I don't know if this is just bad luck. I don't know. They have a weird fetish for people running into each other.
Yeah,
because that happened on the kickoff return. That happened at Murray State when they gave up their first long touchdown. I think it happened again on the interception in the end zone.
Yep.
I mean, what is it with this team? And I think my wife wants me to quiet down now. So shut the door. I'm loud. Okay, I'll have to go shut the door here after I say this. But
that's fair.
I finally got it took us 10 weeks now into the season for me to get the 9 weeks.
Yeah, good for you. That's a pretty good stretch.
This team has a weird thing for running into themselves.
It's crazy. It shouldn't happen.
It's really been the last 3 weeks. I mean, it started with the Murray State game. They had that collision that led to the long touchdown with Murray, and now, fetish would mean someone's enjoying this. Clearly they're not enjoying it, but they're doing it over and over again.
The other teams are right now. I'll say this. First off, this recap's brought to you by Dreamers Do Travels and Amy Dix. Get a hold of Amy Dix at Dreamers Do Travels. She'll get you hooked up with any trip you can dream up. They do cruises. They really specialize in Disney trips for the family. Maybe a trip to a semifinal game on the road, or maybe you want to be there for the first national title in Nashville or anywhere else your heart desires.
Quarterfinal or second round, if we're being honest. Goodness.
That's what you just got back, and I was saying, maybe a road semifinal, maybe. But as it sits right now, it's amazing. There's no game like football where the narrative and outlook for a team can change so quickly. Right. I'm seeing a lot of 2019 comps being thrown around in the chat. And I cannot disagree with that.
To be fair, I said that last week.
Right.
That was my immediate reaction after the loss to NDSU. And
right.
As much as I want to compare this to 2019, they didn't lose a game they did not lose to a team this bad in 2019. I mean, they just didn't.
Right.
The worst loss they had in 2019 was to USD. But that USD team wasn't this bad. I think they ended up finishing 5-6, but you had a good veteran quarterback in Austin Simmons. They had some pieces on that team. And that was an SDSU team that was pretty beat up. And oh, by the way, it was in Vermillion. Yeah. And we all know that's going to be ironically, as we're about to see them go down to Vermillion again in what seems like a kind of similar situation. But they, some of their other losses that year. I mean, they lost to Illinois State. They lost. I'm trying to think who some of the other ones were. I know they lost to Illinois State. That was a kind of an ugly one too.
In 2019, I can tell you.
Yeah. And this is after they'd started getting injured, because obviously they got off to a great start.
Illinois State and USD, that's who they lost to, and then the
UNI playoff game,
and then UNI in the playoffs. Yep.
I mean, the Illinois State one was the one I had somebody comped the Illinois State one, but Illinois State was still a good, and they're good now.
Right. There was no letdowns like this, but let's be honest, there's been no. This is the worst loss in Dana J. Dykhouse Stadium history. It just is.
I mean, the only thing I could think of that was worse. There's nothing worse in terms of a team and opponent.
Right.
The worst ones I can think of were the Cal Poly game in 2016. I realized that Poly team made the playoffs, but that was a really bad loss to have.
Right.
When you had Dallas Goddard and Jake Winicky going ape, and they couldn't stop a team that's just a flat out triple option team or whatever it was. I mean, you knew exactly what they were doing and you couldn't stop it. And that cost them probably home field. I mean, there's been a couple hobo day losses to UNI, but all the teams they had previously lost to were at least playoff caliber teams.
They were usually ranked.
This is a team that's not going anywhere. And they may not, I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like. I'll have to look that up here in a second, but unless they got Murray State on it, they might not win another game.
Yeah. Well, and here's my concern. They do have Murray State. I think it's their last game of the year.
So they probably will win another game.
We think Murray State, that's up in the air. Depends on who you ask. I think it'll be a good game. That being said, Devin Lubas says we had the 605 Hogs in 2019. We don't have Hogs this year. Still have the Hogs. They're not. My frustration is like I've been expecting and waiting for this big jump where they all click and lock in, and now you have Hagen go down, but it just never happened. It just has not happened yet. Where they've started. It looked like for a second that it was going to be that Youngstown State team. But it just never happened. And for the last two games, the team in general, you just haven't seen a response. Once they get down, there's no response back. There's no big push back. This game, you would have expected coming out of half or whatever, there'd have been a big response, big change, whatever, and it never happened. This team went from being really good coming out in the third quarter to it's just been a continuation of the same for the last two games. So that hugely has to be rectified.
And even you think at Murray State, even though they won that game, they still had they finished that game on 20 straight runs. It was still kind of
to finish the game out.
It was still kind of a bizarre way to end a game.
It made sense to me because you were on the road.
You just want to finish.
You're winning. You just want to finish the game. You've got a backup quarterback start. Don't do anything silly and give them momentum.
Yeah, it's still very atypical of what this program has been, but it's a different situation. But
well, I don't know. I mean, the championship years, that would happen all the time. Just finish it out and grind them down.
Well, but just against a Murray State team, though. Against a good team, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's some things that, I think Zimmer said it. Zimmer said it best in his column. Winning can cover a lot of deficiencies, and losing. Yeah. I think losing, magnifies everything. So I don't know.
You're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are. It'll be Carrot Meyer. If we lose next week, I'll be wearing a paper bag during the Illinois State game. We are such a spoiled, bratty fan base. It is crazy. I think somebody brought it up earlier in the comments, and I apologize for not. I think it might have been Dustin Stewart somewhere here mentioned that. Are we you do have to take this into context of this season. We have there's a huge amount of injuries to starters right now. You're down your number one receiver, your number one quarterback. You're down now your starting offensive tackle, one of your number one linebackers, one of your now one of your running backs. You've been down a running back that in a really thin room already for most of the season. You've got, I mean, it's all over the place that these injuries are happening.
Maybe down your number two quarterback.
Might be down your number two quarterback. This is, and you just don't, you lost that depth. We talked about earlier in the year, why is SDSU doing better than USD? It's because they lost a lot as well, but SDSU had that depth already built in that could make up for that being gone. But what that didn't mean is you have a bunch of depth behind it.
Yeah.
You don't. So your frontline guys were still really good, but once you start losing them, that can be some of your issue going forwards. But I mean, realistically, a lot of what's plagued this team though is just hasn't been fixed. And I mean, go back to the Montana State game. The amount of drives where you're like, yeah, they were driving pretty well, and then they got a stupid penalty in the red zone that knocked them back in the 3rd and long and missed field goal, whatever. Or even the Drake game or Sacramento State specifically, where it was like, yeah, they drove all up and down the field in between the 20s and then missed field goal or bad penalty pushes you out of field goal range or whatever. Those things keep happening. They just keep happening over and over again. And people do have to remember, this is the same team that with Chase Mason was able to, and without Lofton Ogroski, was able to storm back at Youngstown State and win that game. And that's a Youngstown State team that just put the fear of God into NDSU up in Fargo today. I mean, you could argue they could have won. Well, you could definitely argue they could have won.
Gone 4 quarters with the Bison this year. Right. Illinois State went 3, but that was in normal. Right. I don't think Bo wrapped it up. I still think if it were me, it's probably Cam. Still Peyton. But
Peyton.
If Peyton, Cam, wrong Bison. Wrong tormentor in the last 2 years, although Cam did end with a losing record against SDSU, so still got that on him. But I think, although at the very least, if Bo and Cam aren't, you got me doing it now. If Bo and Peyton aren't at that ceremony as finalists, something's very wrong, because they should at the least, they should both be finalists. I think the swagger's kind of gone right now. They don't have a lot of confidence. It's just there's just some of it's bad luck. They can't get out of their own way, whether it's I alluded to it earlier with the guys running into each other. But I think the coaching staff isn't above some, I think, criticism. I've mentioned it a few times with the strategies offensively. Probably need to stick a little more with the hot hands at running back. I thought maybe they tried. I thought there were times when it looked like the running combo, especially with Johnson, when he was really the hot hand, probably should have tried to stick with that a little more instead of trying to force the passing stuff or the Jack Henry stuff in there. I mean, but that, to be fair, you're still trying to figure out what you have now. Right. And I've heard the next man up mentality, and I get that, but it is a little easier said than done when you're,
that's the mentality that the team has to have.
That's what you have to have. It doesn't mean it's gonna.
When you're talking about or analyzing a game, that's a different thing.
Yeah. I mean, there were some bad plays out there too. There were some bad penalties. I mean, there's some lack of discipline here and there. I mean, it's just, the wheels fell off today. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to say it. I mean, there's. On all pretty much every front, the only guy you can probably point to and say that guy, I think the defense was better. But, again, you got to take a little bit into account who they were playing. And then obviously, there was a late breakdown on that 57-yard touchdown, whatever. I mean, one guy really burned them and, the other thing we've talked about too, that would eventually cost this team is special teams. Ironically, it wasn't Stater. He's probably the only guy who can come away feeling somewhat good about that game. But special teams has kind of been a thing that we've been a little nervous about this year. And, sure enough, a return that really should not have. I mean, we've seen that kind of return so many times where they fake the little thing, they fake that little reverse. That's just, you got to keep your discipline. You got to keep your lanes. That should not have gone. That's a good player. Don't take anything away from the dude who returned it. Shouldn't have gone 95 yards. I mean, he barely.
Now, to be fair, there was a big missed block in the back at the point of attack on that.
Yeah, that's true.
That was big, and it was right there.
It did look like from what I saw that a lot of people bit on that. You just got to keep your discipline. I mean that.
Yep.
That is one that you see. It's and then it's maybe there's some younger kids on that as well. But yeah, Pelham has been a stud. Pelham's been the only thing he had go wrong was that weird play at Montana State where he whiffed on the punt and they ended up taking it in. But he's been a stud as a punter. Stayed like I said, hopefully today is a sign that maybe he's going to be okay, because you never know if they're, contrary to some of the doomsday scenarios, I still think this team will find a way to win at least one game down the stretch. Prove me right, STSU. But so, you never know if they might need a field goal or something in the stretch to win a playoff game. So he looks like he might be the guy they had thought they were getting, down the road. But man, I just, they need to get healthier. I think, one of the good news I saw is that I heard that Chase Mason's out of the walking boot, but you have to wonder whatever this injury is, if it could be aggravated, if it's going to be something that's going to linger, because I'm sure, I know he wants to be right back out there right now. And I guarantee you he wants to be out there in Vermilion next week, because that's pretty close to, that's as close as he gets to his hometown in Hurley, not Viborg. I just did the story on the Viborg Hurley quarterback thing, so he'd get pissed if I said he was from Viborg. But I know he wants, especially getting a chance to play, getting what would be his last chance to play so close to Hurley in Vermilion. He wants badly to be in the game next week, but you are thinking long range game. And as we saw with this team in 2021 in the fall, it's not impossible for them to make a run. It's hard, but you want to get this team healthy. But yeah, I mean, things are looking pretty bleak at this point. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and I said this, I put this on Twitter, and I said this. I think I ironically said this to you at one point about USD after they lost either to Lamar or NDSU or both.
Yeah.
I just said, you can't worry, you at this point, forget about Nashville, forget about seeds, forget about home games, all of it. You just got to play the game that's in front of you right now. And that's where they have to be. And, honestly, the way, and we'll get into it as we go through the post-game show tonight, the way the rest of the FCS played out today,
I think it was a crazy day.
I mean, yeah, it was a crazy day. If they had won, they would have maybe further boosted themselves to stay in that 2-seed, 3-seed range. But the way it plays out, you could still win out, which I know seems very hard and if not impossible right now. You could still win out and probably be a 7 or an 8 seed at this point, minimum.
Right.
But they just have to focus on right now. They have to kind of forget everything that may have been. They got to clear the mechanism at this point. And, frankly, that worked well for USD because they, and yes, their schedule did soften after that NDSU game, but they're 4-1 since some of their debacles where you thought, man, their season's going to go to hell. And they're right back in the playoff picture again. So I think that's all you do right now is you just got to play one at a time. The cliche, play them one at a time.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a bloodbath, in the FCS today. And I think there's two ways of looking at it. Like the way you and Alex Kinkle are like, man, what a missed opportunity, which absolutely true. But also pretty fortunate that happens. You had
that's my other way of looking at it. That's my other way of looking at it.
Yeah, 7 ranked teams today in the stats poll, anyways.
But you're running out of time to take advantage of it. That's the reality. They've got to figure something. Because, look, I mean, obviously, we'll probably get next into probably what happened down in Vermilion. And I know people are, oh, well, UND might not be that good. They're still pretty good. They very nearly came back and won that game today.
They are. Yeah.
I still think they're going to give NDSU a really good game next week. It wouldn't shock me if they beat the Bison in Grand Forks. And that's still going to be a very, 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 as the Jacks are constituted right now, I can't see them winning in Grand Forks. I just can't. Things have got to change pretty dramatically here in the next 2 weeks. They've got to play a lot better, win or lose the next 2 weeks for me to think they're going to have a chance to go up there and win, because that's always been such a tough place for them to play.
Well,
but right now,
here's my thing.
That's a tough game for me to see them winning.
Everybody was falling all over themselves to give USD the benefit of the doubt in South Dakota when it comes to talking about them. SDSU drops one bad game, and now it's, well, boy, I don't know if they're ever going to.
Well, I'm not quite there yet. I mean, this is. I mean, they didn't play well against NDSU, but we understand that. That's the bot.
Right.
This is more a factor of they're not playing well and they're really dinged up. They don't have. This is not the same team we saw at Montana State. This is not the same team it's really not even the same team we saw at Youngstown State. This is, if they get healthy, if they can win it, if they win 2 games here, if they go down to Vermilion and win, and then they beat Illinois State, absolutely. I love their chances going up to Grand Forks. But and as I said last week, when USD, that's, it's college football. Every week is pretty unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
I said last week that I'm like, well, USD could still make the playoffs if they win 2 out of their last 3. But if they can't beat a struggling Illinois State team, how are they going to beat UND? They were up 26-7 today. So each week is its own game. Each week is its own story. So anything could happen 3 weeks from now. But where they are right now, I can't see STSU going up to Grand Forks and winning that game. Check back with us in 2 weeks when we're doing this post-game show. Hopefully things have gone better for them. But right now, it would be hard for me to say this team, as it's currently constructed, is going into Grand Forks and winning at the Alaris Center.
Well, and that kind of plays into my point of there's no sport that all of a sudden one weekend changes what everybody thinks like that. People forget NDSU won championships in years they lost to Indiana State, even worse Indiana State teams than this. And I mean, that's a fact. That's just the way it is. But
the best comp I can make for NDSU was the year they lost to USD, 2015. With Wentz, he broke his finger that day. That was it ended up being a 4-7 Coyote team. I do remember they did lose an Indiana State game in the early 2010s-ish. I think that was but that was a better Indiana State. That was when they had that running back who was really good. They were still kind of a playoff-ish team. But it happens. I mean, go back a couple of years ago when the Jacks to the Jacks' last championship, people were jumping off the roofs in Fargo when they got housed at Grand Forks by Bubba's team, and he was crying after and that ended up being a pretty bad UND team. And the Bison recovered, and they were a play away from seeing SDSU again in the national title game. So, yeah, these losses happen, and like you said, it is any given Saturday. Things can change in a moment. But they have to start changing soon for SDSU because they're running out of time.
Right. And kind of my point is one game can define your season if you let it, but it can also just be a speed bump on the road. I mean, you look back, look at USD, for example, squeak by Indiana State at Indiana State, but they squeak by them. Squeak by UNI at Cedar Falls, but still barely squeak by them. Lose to Illinois State. And then all of a sudden they beat UND, and now they're bona fide is what it gets is what I've been seeing all over the place. And I'll say this, they will very much be likely. I will not be surprised if they are favored going into this game, especially if Chase Mason's not playing. But it's crazy how fast that flips on a dime, that narrative, because it went from they were out of the playoffs dead in the water. but then they upset the number 8 team because, and just to go through this, how many upsets there were and how big of upsets they were. You had 7 top 25 teams lose. You had the number 2 team, the number 4 team, the number 6 team, the number 8 team. Only one of the number 14 team and then number 19. Of those teams, only one of them lost to another ranked team. Every other one of those teams lost to an unranked team. Just chaos today in the ranks. And we're getting a lot of questions about where are people going to fall, where's Tarleton going to fall to, all that stuff.
The FCS committee is supposed to release their second set of rankings. Good, as Sam Herder had, he had the meme of Morgan Freeman from Dark Knight, and it's good luck. Good luck. Yep. Good luck, guys. I don't know. Those ratings really don't mean much because, it's fun, I guess. But, like I said, I think that's the fortunate thing. And I said this on Twitter too. I'm like, if there's a bit of a silver lining for an SDSU fan, it's like, well, if you're going to take a loss like that, everybody else you're in with,
everybody else does
also lost. Yep. So, if you can win out, as tough as that seems right now, you'll still be a seeded team. And I think especially with that's the other thing. This team really probably needs a seed with all the injuries they have. They could use that bye week pretty badly right now. So I'll be curious to see. I will be curious to see where the committee puts them after this. That'll be, are they going to knock, they still only have 2 losses, as bad as this was, but it's bad optically. Where are they going to fall with that selection committee? Because I think that gives you a good idea moving forward. But again, I think this is things that I hope they're not worried about over at up at the Dyke House building, or not the Dyke House building. It's the Stig building now. Stig building. These are the things they should not be worried about up there, because after a loss like that, I would tear away any schedules that show anything beyond USD this week, and it should just be USD this week, Illinois State next week, and forget about anything that might be past November 8th. And then once you get to November 15th, then when you're past USD and you're on to Illinois State, forget about anything past November 15th. I mean, that's all you can do at this point if you're the Jacks, because you can't, and as we saw in 2021, as bad as that looked after the Vermiracle, it's funny. We're talking about how bleak things have looked, and there's certainly some through lines, because 2019 there was a loss to USD in this, and there was 2021. 2021, the last time things is probably the last time things looked this bleak, because they had to go in the first round. They were a win away from getting back to Frisco in the national championship. Yep. So that things can go south, but you can turn it around pretty quickly. This team does have the talent. It would be nice if they were healthy, but you just got to, you got to let things develop and just worry about this week. And, and Daniel's point, Daniel's saying USD is a must. I would argue USD is always a must-win game. If you're SDSU, you never want to lose to your in-state rival in any way. I mean, is it bigger than NDSU? As the fans have answered, no. But not. You don't want to lose to your in-state rival. No. You never want to lose to them. If it's not the biggest rival, it's the second biggest rival, and you never want to lose a rivalry game. And even if they had been cooking, there's no scenario where a loss to them is going to be good for you. There's just, if you're undefeated after beating the Bison, a loss to them would have hurt. So there's no scenario where that loss, where you can say, we lost to them, but it's okay.
Well, I think you could say the same thing about anything, but when it comes to recruiting in state and everything else, it matters when it comes to that. First off, got to bring up another one of our sponsors. We're proud to partner with the JFPA and Wooden Legs Brewery. We have obviously long been sold out of a garage time lemon kolsch, but get down to Wooden Legs. They've got new stuff coming out all the time. They've always got a fantastic selection of craft beers that are all fantastic on hand. So absolutely Recommend getting down to Wooden Legs Brewery. Get down there for the fan cakes before the next home game. That's always a blast down there. Before you got on the tailgate. And yeah, Wooden Legs, thanks so much. That's probably the coolest sponsorship we've ever had, getting to make a beer. So that was super cool. Anyway, sorry, I had to get that in there.
Well, it was a very good beer. I did have it, so I can attest to that, guys.
Thanks.
I also work at a wine and spirits place too, guys, so I can attest to
hey.
that. Very good beer. You can take my word for that.
So this has completely flipped the script of the
well, this and what happened in Vermilion today.
Yep. I mean, yeah, if they still lose, if they would have lost which they at least before watching, they did their best. And you know what's funny is you look at that game, it's not terribly dissimilar statistically to what the SDSU and Indiana State game, with the disparity of total offense. I mean, they had 110 more yards than USD. They had 205 rushing yards. USD got held to under 100 rushing yards and only 2.6 yards per carry. If you'd have told me that, you're on mute, Borg.
A lot of that rushing yardage came back on sacks, though. I'm trying to figure out what the final, because they got
they got 29. It says 29 yards lost on sacks.
Yeah, because I know Phillips went over 100 yards, but
yeah,
they
only averaged 2.6 yards a carry. That's super low for USD.
Well, the two differences is the guy who was down there. I know the defensive stats don't look great, but you have to understand they were on the field a lot more, and UND really kind of got into a hurry up, and really UND got a couple of good scoring drives going there at the end of the third and the fourth that got them back within the 5 points. But the difference was really twofold. It was special teams and defense. I remember we talked last week that USD had scored on 7 of their first 9 opening drives. Well, their opening drive in this game, they get down to the 1 yard line and they're stuffed on a wildcat run at the 1, which you figure is probably disaster for a team that doesn't score a whole lot of points, but UND doesn't move the ball, and then they're trying to punt and it gets blocked in the end zone for a safety. So usually when stuff like that happens, it's kind of a bad sign. You know, when you get a punt block or something like, you're lucky it's not a touchdown, but that's usually a bad sign when a punt gets blocked that early. And then on the ensuing kickoff, I want to make sure I get this kid's name right, because
especially on the road.
Yeah, especially on the road. And, you know, it wasn't a huge crowd. I'm not doing the whole crowd thing, so let's not. But it was noisy. I mean, obviously, you've gotten a crowd that was certainly demoralized after they had seen him get down to the 1 and not score. You had them demoralized, but then you had them right back in the game. So you'd taken them out, but then on the ensuing kickoff, which is probably pretty important for SDSU considering what we saw today, the Coyotes had a returner. I got to get the guy's name right here. The returner brought it back like 60, 70 yards and set him up with perfect field position. It was Braden White. He had a 66-yard return. He had 2 for 92 in this game. So there's an immediate concern right now if you're South Dakota State after you just gave up a big kickoff return touchdown. He was Braden White for USD was very good and very electric. That's not a guy I'd really seen a whole lot of previously, but he set them up, and then they marched right down and got a touchdown. They're up 9-0. They really made Jerry they didn't get a whole lot of pressure on him. I don't think they sacked him in the game, but they forced 2 interceptions in the first half. Kaminsky made some really bad decisions. The second interception was just that was an unforgivable one. He was rolling out, should have just thrown it away or just ducked out of bounds. Instead, he just kind of floated it up, and the guy made a nice pick for USD, set up a touchdown, which was mainly all pretty much Lorenzo Fenner. It was an out pattern to the sideline, and he stayed in bounds, kind of broke a tackle, trucked a guy, and went 45 yards. So they were up 16-7 at half. They kick a field goal to start the second half, and then there was a fluky fumble return. Guy runs into the pile. UND looks like they're driving to score a touchdown. Runs into the pile at the 20, and a USD player, make sure I get his name right too. USD's, I think he's done this once or twice already this year. It was a fumble return touchdown by DeJuan Lewis. He pulls it out and goes 80 yards, and they're up 26-7. And at that point, you're thinking maybe the game's over. Well, right after that, UND goes on a couple of scoring drives. The Coyote offense is messed up and still can't do anything. And UND had 2 chances with the ball in the fourth quarter, but turned it over on downs twice. So you got to credit the Coyote defense. They bowed up when they had to and made a couple of stops against an offense that has been one of the better ones in the Valley. And I mean, Sawyer Seidel is a dude. He's a lot of stuff gets said about Kaminsky, but that's a really good running back. I mean, it's special teams and defense really carried USD today, and their offense still has issues. The one that I don't get with them, and I talked with some more USD people today, just some other fans. Not this wasn't official, but I don't understand why they don't use Javion Phelps more. And that name is probably familiar because he was one of the big heroes when they upset NDSU last year. Big, tall guy. I thought maybe he'd been hurt. Apparently, he was just passed on the depth chart, which I don't get because, again, you look at him, he's got size, good body control. They kind of got him in today, and he made some nice plays. They've got another receiver who's about his size named Fenner. I'm like, why don't you just get these 2 guys in and throw them jump balls? So, I mean, that would be my closed circuit to the USD coaches is bring this guy back into your offense because he was really good. I get that there's competition. You're not really – whoever you passed him for on the depth chart, they've not been that good. Give him more chances because he and Bauman had a pretty good connection last year in one of the bigger wins in your program's history, no less. So I don't get that. I mean, they still – on third down, they're only 2 of 9. They're still a team that they're still pretty rough offensively. Phillips is a really good running back. He is a bowling ball, and you don't get him down on the first try very often. You better go low or you're not going to get him down. So they still have weapons. And defensively, I don't let that NDSU game fool you because, the Bison are pretty damn good. They defensively will do some things, but I'm very curious because I think Aiden got sacked. What was the number that you saw? 29. How many times did it have him getting sacked?
I didn't see how many times. I
want to say it was 4 or 5
rushing yards, but
because I've only got the ESPN recap, and of course they're not showing me the sacks here. I should go over to the USD one instead. But yeah, I mean he was. I mean, there again is some of the stuff.
They have 2 for 11.
I felt like more, but he also had some rollout. They still tried some rollout plays, and I said this to a couple Coyote fans. I'm like, guys, this Aiden rollout stuff is not it. I know he lost some weight, and that's no knock. I love Aiden Bauman, but he's not a runner. We've known this for years. And there were a lot of penalties in that game too. There were some mental mistakes that I think they got very chippy too. There was kind of a little bit of a fight at the end of the game. But I mean, it was a good effort from the Coyotes. That was aside from that little spurt where UND ran off 14 in a row. That was easily their best game of the season, which probably plays into some of the narratives that you're going to hear because obviously they played their best game at the right time going into a rivalry game, and they're fully back in the playoff chat now. I mean, I think if they were to win next week, they're probably into the playoffs regardless with 2 top. Well, we don't know if SDSU is going to be top 10 next week. They might fall out of the top. We'll see where that all falls. But I mean, this is their probably their only quality win right now. And it's a big one. If you pick off SDSU, even if you were to lose in Carbondale, 7-5 with 2 ranked wins probably gets you in as one of the last teams in. That would be my guess.
It's a 12-game season, so one
of those losses was an FBS loss too.
Right. It's a 12-game season though, so generally the 7-win thing was when they were 11-win seasons or 11-game seasons. That was kind of the rule of thumb. Now, potentially, sure, I wouldn't go with probably. Boy, it'll be tough. You got the Ivy Leagues in there now. with Tarleton losing, I don't know how that scenario shakes out. If McKinnell's still watching, I'm sure he knows, but I don't think that gives Abilene the in for winning the UAC. But if it does, now you've got another bid stolen by Tarleton instead of Abilene Christian. I wouldn't feel as a Jacks fan, I don't think you're in at 7-5, and they've got 2 ranked wins right now.
No, and I think the Jacks got to get to at least 8, but
so
Jacks also don't have an FBS game. I mean, I do think
right
that kind of helps USD a little bit. They can write off 1, but if you beat SDSU, you can probably go on the road. Although we'll see where SIU's at as well. We don't know what SIU is going to look like in another week. So
yeah, they won this week.
I mean, there's going to be a play. I think there's going to be a playoff feel to next week in the Dakota Dome. I mean, there
has to be.
I mean, it has to feel. Both teams have to feel like their lives are at stake next week.
Yep. They
and the other weird thing that a Coyote fan pointed this out to me last week, they fell into what happened to the 2022 Jackrabbit team, which was their bye is at the end of the season.
I was just looking at that.
Yeah, they don't
they only got 2 games left.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. A Coyote fan brought that up to me last week, and they're like, "Have you ever seen this before?" And I'm like, "Funny you mentioned that."
Yes, I have.
And it is interesting because, I mean, it didn't really affect that team too much. They didn't they didn't necessarily like the way but they were playing so well.
Right.
I think they came out a little sluggish, as I recall, but I want to say, that was the game. I think it was who was this? I think it was Holy Cross. No, who was the second round game they played that year? I think it was because they obviously killed Montana State, Holy Cross, and then I think it was like Villanova or somebody. No, it was I don't know whoever it was. They beat them. They smoked them good. I think it was Mercer, somebody like that. I don't know, but could work to USD's favor if they make the playoffs because it would almost work. You'd have a bye going into the playoffs. It would almost be like having your first seed.
Round. Yep.
Yeah. So that could actually work in their favor if they get in. SDSU would probably like a bye at this point right now in the season. So, but yeah, I mean, those are all kind of they're tough scenarios. I think if USD wins out, they're definitely in at 8-4.
Yep,
that's for sure. You win 1 or 2, and you're really on the bubble. You're really the irony is they could end up with as many wins as like Lamar, and then Lamar would be pretty. That would be an interesting scenario if USD has as many wins as Lamar, who they lost to, who has fewer quality wins but has the head-to-head.
Yep, that'll be interesting.
And of course, the last thing I'll say about this is we almost need to get the Spider-Man meme of the 2 teams pointing at each other because you have USD losing to Lamar, and now you have SDSU. And who would have thought?
We were talking about that. I'll say the same thing I did then. This is a far worse loss than Lamar. Far worse.
For where
being at home, being at home, all of it's a far worse loss. I 100% understand the frustration over this game. Because I'm with everybody on that. It's just it's baffling. I mean, it was just a frustrating game to watch. I will say the crowd did their best for quite a while to try to kind of get them back going into it. Caused a couple false starts. That was good. But man, it's just a brutal loss. Saw a lot of people saying the worst one since the lacrosse loss way back when in 2006. Something like that.
Well, that team came back in 2007.
It wasn't 07.
It was 06. That team almost came back and won the Great West that year. I mean, they bounced back nicely that year, and if it was the 06 one, I think they basically won out until they lost in Fargo at the end.
I mean, to be honest, if I'm the Yotes, if I'm a Yote fan, just from the perspective of how I would have preferred to have SDSU coming into this game, even with the injuries, I would have preferred that they won this game, that SDSU won this game by 40 and comes in overconfident. There's no way that happens now because everything we've talked about tonight is the next game is the only game for the rest of the year. That's just the way it is. It's just the way it has to be, and they're not going to be overlooking them. You just beat the number 8 team. Well, they better not be. You just beat the number 8 team in the country. So it should be a doozy of a game. And
I think the one thing, if you're a Coyote fan, you have to feel pretty confident regardless right now, because the team just played pretty well. Although, again, there still are the underlying issues that offensively, I still think they're not playing that well. And you gave up Aiden was under a lot of pressure today, so I do think the Jackrabbit defensive line has a chance to disrupt them pretty good. But I think the bigger issue, if you're USD, is, how afraid are you right now of Luke Marble and Jack Henry? If Chase Masons gets back in there, then I think you start to say, okay, that could be a bit of a problem. But and that's not to be. I'm not trying to knock those guys. I think they're doing the best they can. But how afraid are you right now if you see Mason, if you see Henry, John Bell, whoever? But if Chase Mason shows up and he's good to go, I think right now you're the Coyotes fans. The Coyotes have been kind of in this mode. Here's the thing. I said it's one at a time for the Jacks. The Coyotes have been in this mode now for a month plus. They've kind of had to do this too. So, now everybody's kind of in this mode where, these are two teams that are now in the same place. They have to play the one in front of them. And USD's kind of been in this place a little longer. So I don't know, from a fan's perspective, I agree. But I think from the team's perspective, they're on even footing now. Because now, both of them
say
can't
this.
win anything.
If Mason can't play with both of these teams coming in, bet the under. Because 26 points is the most points USD scored against anyone not named Drake or Murray State.
Yeah, I think it's going to be low scoring.
And that took a safety to get there. So
it took a safety and a defensive touchdown.
Right.
So I do think, and one of the offensive touchdowns was set up by a 66-yard return, and one of the offensive touchdowns was a 45-yard touchdown. That was a pretty unbelievable effort by the. Look, USD's. It's weird because it went against what's been their MO, which is they score on their opening drive and then they don't score at all.
They almost did.
They got down to the 1 and didn't score on their opening drive today. Yep. But I would expect it to be a very low scoring game. It could look a lot like that 2019 game, quite honestly, which again, you want to talk about the 2019 vibes. SDSU went into that game with a third string quarterback. They could go into this game. We just don't know. And Dan Jackson's going to play this as coy as he did with the NDSU game. We're not going to know if it's Chase Mason, Luke Marble, or Jack Henry, or John Bell. We're not going to know until probably like an hour before kickoff or on the pregame radio show or whatever. So it could look a lot like that game to me because, USD is playing better defensively, and their special teams might have a slight edge. I think kicking-wise, punting-wise, I think these teams are about even. They've had special teams players of the week. They had like a run of
SDSU
players of the week.
SDSU's punter's incredible.
Yeah, the punter, I give the punter edge to SDSU a little bit. Kicking edge, probably place kicking edge to USD, because they did actually have like a specialist of the week for 3 straight weeks, and it was a different kicker each time. Return game, probably right now USD by a little bit, just because of what I saw today, both in terms of their return game and the return defense right now for SDSU, but that can flip. It could be one of those games where a little bit of Ben LeCon, who ironically now works at USD. It could be one of those games where it's decided by special teams. It really could, which would maybe scare me a little bit if I were an SDSU fan, but maybe it wouldn't because, again, you do have a good punter. And if Stater is starting to settle in, it's indoors at a dome, could help as well. So it could be one of those games where I do agree. I think it's going to be defense and special teams, but man, if Mason isn't out there, like I said, it's been a rough year for Aiden Bauman, but they've got the senior quarterback. I think that's a big edge in a game like this. And it's going to be I know there's going to be a lot of blue in there, but it's going to be a wild atmosphere. And that's a lot for potentially Jack Henry to deal with. Luke Marble struggled in it his first time in the marker. This is going to be a much more hostile one.
Yep.
It'll be fun. This is what you know, rivalry games are what make college football the best. So if you are not amped up and ready to go into the Lions' den, if you're SDSU, then you don't deserve to win.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it goes. Hold on. Jeepers. Yeah, it's gonna be, a knockdown, drag out fight, I think, with the way USD's just leans on their defense, which makes all the sense in the world for them. Why wouldn't you? That's kind of been your MO all season, run the ball. I do like from the SDSU side of things, their ability to shut down the run. I do have concerns that, like today, they ran a lot of cover zero stuff and they got burned twice on it. Do you overuse that and get burned twice, by Bauman in this game, and then you're in a bad spot? That's a concern I have, but I do feel better, and this has just been the way with SDSU defenses forever. I do feel better going into that game against a very run-heavy, run-first team. I just think that's a better situation for SDSU right now.
Well, it's one thing we've said a lot of this year about the Coyotes, because both these teams we've said have been hit hard by the portal. Obviously, SDSU more so at the first half when Jimmy left. But the thing where the Coyotes got hit hardest was along the offensive line, and I don't think they've necessarily. I know there's times where Johansson has kind of said that he thought the O-line has played well, and they have, but there have also been times that, there were times today I don't think they played that well. I thought Bauman took some of this is Aiden holds it, he sometimes holds it too long. I think they've tried a few too many rollouts with him, which I really don't understand, because we know, what Aiden is at this point in his career. He's not really a runner. He can if you need him to, but that's not really his game. And especially from a left-handed standpoint, it's just a bit of a, unless you're Cole Payton and you're built, he's built differently anyway. But they've got some. I would be confident in the defensive line of SDSU, because we know that defensive line has been grading well the whole year, and they look good today. I don't think there was any problem with them and Stater were probably the two top two of the only things you can really take away from today that were probably any good. I think they'll get a decent amount of pressure on Bauman. I think they'll probably, again, as I've said, though, Phillips is a guy who does not go down on the first. He doesn't go down on the first hit, so you better get 2 or 3 hats on him, and you better be going low, because if you go high on him, he's going to, that reminds me a little of, I can't remember who that back was in 2021 they had who transferred out to Idaho, but he had a good, before he blew,
I don't remember.
Before he blew out his knee the next year, he was really good, and then he got hurt the next year. But yeah, he's a really, again, you wonder how much different they'd be if they had Pierre back there too to pair with him, because this guy didn't even really emerge until Pierre got hurt. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I do think they have receivers who could be a problem, but they just haven't been able to unlock it this year. And I don't know that they have a speed guy like what we saw today with Indiana State. Martins is a pretty good kind of slot guy, but he's not like Carter Bell was the last couple of years. They don't have I like Phillips, but he's not quite Tice. We know how much of a dude Tice was the last couple of years. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting, at the very least, today added a lot more spice to that game next week, which, I know you said the Sioux Falls media narrative, personally, I like going into this game where there's stakes on both sides. Usually there's always stakes for SDSU because they're fighting for a seed or something. This now, I would rather these teams both be top 5 like it's been the last 2 years, because that was really fun. Thinking that, hey, they're both top 5 and maybe we'll see this in Frisco. That's probably not going to happen this year.
Probably not.
Probably not. If we do see it, we might see it in the first round at this pace, unfortunately. But nonetheless, it's got the best thing is it's got stakes on it. It's a game that beyond the rivalry aspect, it's got means a lot beyond just the rivalry this year. So I think that's, anytime you have that, the more important the games are, the more it adds to a rivalry game. And that's what we have again. And I didn't necessarily think we were headed for that 2-3 weeks ago.
Yep. One quick, I got to do a read for you for Innovative Engineering Solutions, LLC. They're mechanical engineering services in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and surrounding states. Licensed in South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Colorado, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, Missouri, Mexico, Kansas, Montana, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Illinois, Utah, Ohio, and Michigan. Founded in 2005, Innovative Engineering Solutions LLC delivers high-performance mechanical engineering design solutions for both new construction and renovation projects. Based in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that we specialize in HVAC and plumbing systems designed to meet the unique needs of each client while ensuring full compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. They proudly serve a diverse range of commercial clients, including multifamily housing developers, office and retail spaces, auto dealerships, banks, churches, schools, and other commercial facilities. They don't punt on their design. Their experienced team includes licensed engineers, skilled designers, and expert CAD technicians that utilize industry-leading tools like Revit and Train 3D Plus software to tackle designs that are not just functional, but a touchdown every time. At Innovative Engineering Solutions, client satisfaction is their top priority. We listen, we collaborate, and we deliver smart, energy-efficient systems that perform reliably for years to come. So I just wanted to get into, I think... I don't have much more to add on the SDSU USD game coming up. Or
we should mention the rest of the FCS today too.
But the rest of the FCS, we've been getting a lot of questions on where does. All right, well, here we go. Zach says, Brendan, interested in your take based on today. Do you think the gap between NDSU and everyone is as big as we all thought last week, or has that been brought back down a bit? Honestly, I think it's brought down right now, because I think. This Indiana State game, even though theoretically, they statistically won the game and handled the game and everything, they still lose by 2 touchdowns, and I think they just showed exactly what they are. So I think it takes some shine off of the win being as big of a win for NDSU as it was. I just don't think that, like you've said, Borg, that was not the same team that won in Montana, in Bozeman. It just wasn't. So I think it's been brought back down a bit. The Montana's maybe, but also I do think there is some hangover factor there on the other side of the fence. In that marker game, there's just, and SDSU and NDSU are in similar spots where your in-state rival is next. Not saying if anyone could afford to overlook a ranked team, it would be NDSU this year. So I think maybe to bring it down too far would be a mistake. I'd say maybe you bring it down if UND game's really close or whatnot.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't get too far ahead of myself.
Let's check back. Let's check back after next week and we see what happens with UND. You could maybe even make the same case a little bit with UND today, although I would argue that anytime you get the Dakota schools playing each other, obviously we know that NDSU and SDSU are the big dogs in terms of that. But I think anytime the Dakota schools play, that's kind of I don't think, I don't think UND has much of a case to say it was a trap game today in Vermilion, because anytime a Dakota school plays, it kind of raises the blood pressure. You get the old NCC pressures. But I do think, this was very much both a hangover and a trap game for NDSU, knowing what they have next up in Grand Forks. And this was a much worse one on paper anyway. Obviously, we saw what happened in Brookings. But, Bo Brungard is just – I've been saying this about this dude for I said about this dude last year when I saw him nearly beat USD, a really good USD team all by himself. He is legit. And got a fly buzzing around in there?
No, I thought my lights dimmed or something, and apparently not. So
it's funny because that happened the other night in that Northern Arizona game that was on ESPN. I think one of them scored a touchdown, and then the lights all went out for a minute in the dome.
Oh my God,
And
that's funny.
by the way, here's a little aside. Apparently, there's 3 teams that have the nickname Jacks, and they all had the script writing like this past week. Like you had the NAU's
Stephen F.
Lumberjack,
Austin, NAU, and SDSU.
NAU, SDSU, and Stephen F. also has a script.
Yep.
So
that's funny that they all had the script in the same weekend. That's funny.
I don't know if NAU. I don't know if Stephen F. did. I know NAU did, but Stephen F. did get into the. I'm like, God, I love that script stuff. Man, okay, now we're maybe overusing it a little bit because now there's no.
That's the way all those helmet fads go, unless it's something that's super unique to the team.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem when you have 3 teams that are nicknamed Jacks in the one subdivision.
Right. We keep getting the question. Would love to think where you think Tarleton is after that loss. Dylan Pogue says, I think it's going to be an interesting case study. I'd love to give a great answer to this. I don't have one because I'm not filling out my bracket right now. And with the amount of teams that lost, you got 2, 4, 6, 8 all lost. I don't think they can really drop all that far. I think they'll still be a top 10 team. If you ask me where the committee has them, boy, you'd have to, gun to my head, I think maybe they hover around the 10 range. Just because SDSU's loss is so much worse. And really all the other ranked teams that lost their losses are worse than the one that Tarleton took. So I think they'll still be in that top 10 range.
Abilene
maybe 8.
This was still a playoff team a year ago. They're 5-4 now. You're on mute.
I was talking to my lights.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
They were 5-4. You know, they're 5. I know they're not having this year. They had we also forget too. They went to the Fargo Dome a year ago and gave the Bison a bit of a scare for a little while. It was on the road too. It was in Abilene. So I think we identified this a week or two ago that this is probably Tarleton's only shot to lose in the regular season. So barring some kind of a upset. So I think if there hadn't been so many upsets, we're trying to predict what the committee. I just know I've had a number of people kind of tell me that, well, I watched that game and they're not a top 5 team. That may be true. We'll see when we'll see what we see. But I think I can't imagine the committee. The one that matters the most is going to be the committee because they're going to have the final say on this. And I would imagine I would be shocked if they fell out of the top 5. I don't think that happens. I'll say 4 or 5 for now. I think today there's a pretty good chance that the Big Sky locked in the 2 seed. That's whether it's Montana State or Montana, whoever wins the Brawl of the Wild.
As long as the Montanas hold serve.
Yeah, as long as one of them doesn't trip up before the Brawl of the Wild. I think whoever wins the Brawl probably gets the 2 seed at this point because I don't think Tarleton can get that back. But I'm just looking at the stats now for this game. Abilene gave up, Tarleton gave up 435 total yards of offense, 233 rushing. They're just, we'll see. The game.
So Dylan, I'm not going to do this game of, well, if they don't drop to 3, who do you place there? And then we answer that. And then it's, well, who drops to here? And I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing a full top 10 here, but I will say if Tarleton doesn't drop to 3 and they drop past that, I put Montana State at 3. I think that's fair. And we'll see as I sit down and look at it, potentially that I could see having Montana State over Montana. But yeah.
And I agree with Brian. I think,
oh yeah, you can't drop another. There's no way a 3 loss use a top 8 seed. You could get a top 16, but that ensures home field advantage in the first round.
I think if it hadn't broken the way it had today, they wouldn't be a seed. Quite frankly, if you hadn't,
there's real potential.
If you were to tell me, and again, I'm not going to go as far as to like you. I'm not going to go as far as to say, oh, this is who the seeds are 1 through 10, 1 through 8 right now. I'm just saying, right now, I would say they're probably hanging on to an 8 seed, but that's only because everybody else basically lost. if it hadn't been such a chaotic day, they would have been knocked out of the seed now. You could still argue they might not be a seed now. But
yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's where, you know, your gut reaction after a game like that, like my gut reaction after the NDSU game was SDSU should be like 15, but then you have to sit and think and look and do all that stuff. And you're like, okay, that's whatever. So the gut reaction after a loss to Indiana State, you know, right. You know, Zach McKinnell spells it out. You know, it's going to be it's brutal ranking them because, you know, they have the worst loss of any team in the top 10, but the Montana State win's amazing. So,
but
you
don't
can't,
they have to kind of consider how the teams are playing going into the playoffs and like?
Well, if we're talking seeding,
injuries and things like that too.
Sure. Yeah. And yes, they say they take injuries into account. And I know Zach pointed out before, well, it doesn't look good for SDSU when Tarleton won, blah, 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 blah. I mean, if SDSU go in a hypothetical situation, SDSU ends up winning out and they get ranked wins against well, I'm betting USD
should be back in the rankings, I would assume.
So you get a ranked win at USD. You get a ranked win against Illinois State because they'll probably be ranked. And then you get a ranked win at UND. That would give SDSU 4 road ranked wins.
They could be up as high as
5 ranked wins total. And if you don't take some in that hypothetical scenario, Chase comes back and they win those games, you can't look me in the eye and honestly tell me, well, Tarleton won with their backup, so they should be, or whatever. If it's close in this hypothetical, pick whatever team, they won with their backup. But then you can point at and go, yeah, well, SDSU won 4 ranked wins on the road when they had their quarterback. So, yeah, you probably should give him a little bit of leeway when he was gone, which also would speak. And this is a very hypothetical scenario. Right now, we've talked about this. For SDSU, it is next week and next week only that matters. So,
and Dylan was asking, as we look at the rest of the FCS, what happened to Davis? I think they're still on their backup quarterback now, if I'm not mistaken. They've had some injuries, right?
I didn't get the chance to catch the Davis game.
Well, I know they lost on a 50
today. These afternoon games kill me because I don't get to watch nearly as many games.
Well, first of all, you gotta love this name. Trajan Sinatra did it his way and hit a 50-yard field goal for Idaho State with about 52 seconds left. But I'll have to double check. Somebody correct me. I know they had an injury to their starting quarterback at Davis. So I'm gonna double check this here. I mean, they still put up a lot of offense. They've got their starting quarterback now is a Caden Pinnock who threw.
Pinnock's their starter. He's their starter.
He's their regular dude. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't play very well today. I mean, I know he got hurt a while back. He threw for 325, but he also threw 2 picks. So just not a whole lot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's in Idaho State. We forget they almost won at UNLV earlier this year. They've been, I think Daniel said they've been kind of frisky all year. Cody Hawkins, the son of Dan Hawkins, the head coach there. I mean, they're a team they had a guy go for 219 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. So that right there is probably a bad sign for Davis. Davis is not a very good defensive team right now. And
well, Brian, you say Pinnock was out, but I'm showing in this game he was 23 for 32 for 325 yards and a touchdown.
I'll go to the UC Davis site because I'm
on the Davis site.
Okay, is the Davis site?
Yeah, that is the Davis site. So
I'll have to double because I know he'd missed some time. I know he'd been dinged up. Well, I mean, either he just came back. I know he was dinged up and missed some time. So either he was just coming back or he still might be dinged up, but he did not play well. I mean, 325 is a nice stat line, but 1 touchdown and 2 picks in a 2-point game. Yeah, 2-point game. Those 2 picks were killers, and obviously they give up a 50-yard field goal in the final minute. I mean, it's and you give up 219 yards rushing.
Yeah, Pinnock was out last week. He was there today.
Yep. So
you hush, Taco King. We should have made taco bets, Dan. We should have made taco bets.
But yeah, I mean, that was I mean, that's Idaho State's been frisky. Like the one guy said, they've been I can't really say a team that's won 3 games is on the rise, but and Northern Colorado, a team I've said that's been making some progress this year, they got thumped at home by Montana State, but there are some programs that have been kind of dead, for lack of a better word, that have shown a little bit of life this year. Idaho State, they're starting to show signs of life, which let's hope it would be a good thing for the rest of the subdivision if those teams can steadily improve and become viable playoff teams again. I'm not saying they have to become national title contenders, but I'm sure they would like to be. But it would be good if they could be viable contenders. And
people around here forget that the Idaho State Bengals had a very, very successful NFL defensive end.
One Jared Allen
for the Vikings, yeah.
It was for the Chiefs too. We gave him to the Vikings. We gave him to the Vikings when we sucked.
Whose fault was that? You shouldn't have done that.
Herm Edwards and Carl Peterson. That's whose fault it was.
See?
We drafted him, we developed him, and then we gave him to the Vikings, and they wasted him anyway. You're the Packers fan. You should be agreeing with me on this.
You are too proud of yourselves on the Chiefs right now for me to agree on that specifically.
Come on, I'm dissing on the Vikings. I hardly ever do that. That should be easy money for you. Good Lord.
I don't have to diss on the Vikings.
After Aaron Rodgers last week and now this, come on.
I don't have to diss on the Vikings. They exist.
I mean, if there is one, Carson Wentz sacrificed himself for their sacrificed himself so that JJ McCarthy
the rest of his career for that team to go,
to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or give JJ McCarthy one more game to prove he doesn't suck. I don't know, whatever that was, but I would have liked him to beat the Chargers personally, but thanks.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think, I guess looking ahead to next week as we wrap it up, because we've been on now for an hour and a half. How many people are still on board with us? I will admit. How many?
67. God bless y'all.
I think that's more than we had last week for the marker at this time.
Yeah, well, misery loves company, and I'm sure everybody's we got plenty of NDSU and Montana State and everybody else fans poking their heads in here.
I will admit it's not been quite the nuclear fallout that I expected. I didn't necessarily need this as much as I thought I was going to, or the fallout mask. I should have fittingly I should have got the fallout costume for Halloween. But if I'd known better, I would have stopped by the Spirit. At this pace, Dana J might be a Spirit Halloween come November. But
right, Zach, listen,
I'm not going there yet.
I don't need to be up till 2
No, I'm not going.
I got a baby to be up with, and it's daylight savings time. I don't need to play that game. You just get out of here.
And I got to go to I got a banquet thing I got to go to during Chiefs Bills next week. Thank you.
Oh,
tomorrow that sucks. So.
Your favorite game in the world.
Yeah, we kind of need that one a little more this year, honestly. Usually it's the Buffalo regular season Super Bowl. Now we kind of need it too. So, but it's a fun game. But it's been looking ahead to next week. Obviously, another rivalry weekend in the Valley. You've got obviously you got the State U games. You got SDSU, USD, UND, NDSU. ESPNU might be. Granted, although ESPNU doesn't exactly get very good broadcast numbers, as has been pointed out, they might be kind
ESPNU is worse than being on Midco.
Yeah, I mean Midco has more reach, especially. Yeah,
you get a linear TV deal that ends up actually being worse for the teams. Like if you're going to do that. You almost need to write in the contract that if it's this game, the one of the Midco teams, right? If it's one of their games, you've got to at least put it on ESPN2 or take, a game that's at Illinois State or Southern Illinois that doesn't have any linear TV attached to them.
Or do it off. I hate doing this.
Not Friday.
It's work for the big sky.
Gross.
I'm not a big fan of it either. I'm not.
Gross. You're such a TV guy.
I know. But I mean, look, I'll never do the Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday. Well, Monday crap. I've seen other colleges. When
That's
I
the
was at
worst.
when I was at CSU, we did Thursdays, and I was fine with that.
Well, that's back when it was unique and like
Yeah, it
only the
was
Mountain
unique.
West was doing it.
Well,
It
but
was
the thing of
cool.
it is, for an FCS school, like I said, for an FCS school, if you can get the exposure and you get it on ESPN2, might be worth it then. Not ESPNU, but if you could get it on ESPN2, but the problem is they'll
Right.
never guarantee it early
Right.
in the season. They only
Hey,
do it 2 weeks ahead.
Dylan might be onto something. Zach, I'll just send you the invite, buddy. You hop on here and you
Yeah,
keep
I've
it
been willing.
rocking until 2 a.m., buddy.
We've been saying we were willing to have some guests on here in one of these whiles because
Yeah.
people might get kind of sick of us, But
Never.
my only thing,
Us?
Brian, with the Friday night games is I do hate taking away from the high school, and I'm still a bit of a traditionalist on that. Although ironically, I say that as South Dakota asininely plays playoff games on Thursday on a school night. Chad, I was calling a game actually. I was calling the AAA quarterfinals here on Thursday night from Howard Wood Field. I called the doubleheader for Midwest Sports Plus.
Yeah.
And my producer, Chad Berger, he was following it, and he tweeted this out that Watertown actually had to play out in Sturgis for their quarterfinal, and they lost, and they didn't get back to town till 4:15, and they still had to go to school the next day.
Ooh.
What the fudge are we doing here?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's terrible.
I understand now the week before they played on a Thursday to end the regular season, and in some cases start the playoffs in 11B and all the 9-man classes.
Yep.
That was because they had conferences the next day, so they were off. Like the kids were at least off. Right. The reason that apparently they didn't they do it another Thursday was it's all state choir or chorus, I think, this week.
Oh, geez.
Which, okay, but come on. I mean, like, especially for these first round playoff games. I know I think, was out in Pierre, and they didn't get home till 1 a.m. And you're expecting them to go to school the next day. I mean, that's silly. So, but that's just a little aside. But I am a bit of a traditionalist. I don't like taking away it should still be high school Friday, college Saturday. I know ironically TV has definitely changed a lot of that, but unfortunately I'd still prefer that. But if we're going to live in this weird ass world, we might as well take advantage of it, and might as well if it can get SDSU, USD, and these schools some more exposure, they might as well play on a one-off on a Friday. Does not bother me every now and then.
Right.
So I'm not opposed to it. But obviously, those are the big games next week. 3:00 I was kind of a little bummed about that,
it's a
too.
Weird start time.
Yeah, I'm a little bummed about that because I kind of wanted to go to the Mankato Augustana game at 1, which is now really big in D2. Shout out to Augie. They won again today over Northern, and they're going to be top 5 going into that game in D2. But, weird start time for them, 3:00. You have the UND NDSU game in Grand Forks at 1. Sneaky game, too, that's kind of going to have a lot of playoff implications. Youngstown State hosting Southern Illinois. Like I said, Youngstown might be playing like the second best team, in the Valley, but if they lose, they could be done. At 5-4 right now, they could be done. So, and again, Southern Illinois has to host USD the following week. So that's going to be a huge game out in Youngstown with a lot of playoff implications on it. And that's at 1 as well. Basically everything next week is in that 12-1 window except SDSU USD. So big weekend for the Valley.
Yes, it is. And
don't know offhand what everybody else is. I think Mercer has a big game in the SoCon. We didn't even get to them, but those will be the big ones to watch in the Valley next week.
Yep. And we will catch you all next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. So with that, thanks everybody for joining us. Take it easy and have a good one.